Do you have a dream that is a small seed of an idea and it's ready to sprout?
Or are you in the workplace weeds and you need to bloom in a new creative way?
Perhaps you're ready to embrace and grow a more vibrant, joyful, and authentic life. If you answered yes to any of these, you are ready to rebloom. Welcome to the podcast where we have enlightening chats with nature lovers, makers, and artisans as they share inspiring stories about pivoting to a heart-centered passion.
Hello, I'm Lori Siebert, and I am very curious to hear from friends and artisans about the creativity that blooms when you follow your heart.
And I'm Jamie Jameson, and I want to dig deep into the why behind each courageous leap of faith and walk through new heart-centered gardens.
Each episode of Rebloom will be an in-depth conversation with guests who, through self-discovery, shifted to share their passions with the world.
Get ready to find your creative joy as we plant the seeds for you to rebloom. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to another amazing episode of Rebloom. I'm Jamie Jameson.
And I'm Lori Siebert.
Hi, Lori. How are you today?
Hi, Jamie.
Hi.
We have a really fun guest today who is a friend of mine, and I know Robin from my art licensing world. And actually, Robin's been to my home before, almost right when she was on the cusp of making the leap from one kind of path into another. And so I'm so excited because I'm watching her just live in her authenticity and what she loves. And like when I check in with her Instagram, I get so inspired. So I'm so excited to welcome Robin Davis.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Lori. Thank you, Jamie. I'm so excited to talk to you guys.
Oh, thank you.
Just sitting here all by myself in my studio.
Oh. Crash!
Little is the key because I just sent a bunch of things flying.
Okay, that is
Sorry,
so
girl.
fun. And I think we need to keep that in there. So for our listeners, you can't see her beautiful studio, but it is jam-packed with just bits and baubles and all kinds of wonderful things. And one just went crashing down. Do you need to stop and get something, or are we okay?
No,
We're just
okay.
That is hilarious.
That's
welcome to real world. When I photograph, sometimes, Robin, my studio is a little bit cluttered. I wouldn't say cluttered. I would say loved. There's a lot of love in there, but some stuff comes crashing down all over the place. Robin, where is home for you?
I'm just outside of Toronto, Ontario, Canada.
You can hear the accent. That's what we talk on Instagram, but I miss your face and I miss your voice. So it's so fun to get to see you on this. And your studio, oh my God, it's magical. No one can see it through, a podcast, but she's been a collector for years of rusty bits. Mm-hmm. So but let's go back to a little bit about your background. I want to share with our listeners what your journey has been.
Okay. Well, I took visual merchandising, graphic design. I was a marketing director for a little while. Then when I had my son in year 2000, I started, thinking more of ways I could be home to be with him. And then I explored art licensing and then, slowly made my way into creating a portfolio and learning. I had mentors and then learning my way through art licensing. And lucky enough, I was able to be in the studio full time with my son. I did art licensing for about 16 years, roughly. So it was great. I mean, I learned so much. I feel like, everything we go through in our creative journey guides us through those whispers that keep calling to your heart. So everything I learned in art licensing, I feel is now, guiding me still as I build this brand, this little world I'm in now. So, yep.
And it wasn't that you were unsuccessful in art licensing, because you were very successful.
Yes.
But I remember you were always drawn to more of this rusty kind of assemblage sort of work. But I love, love, love the video that you have on YouTube. You're quite a filmmaker, too, by the way, of telling the story of how Pocket began. So, can you share that?
Yeah, sure. So I was doing art licensing and in the studio full time, and painting, doing ink work, a watercolor, a lot of illustrations that way. But something else was calling me, more dimensional in my head. Like I could see, I was seeing more of my illustrations in a dimensional way, specifically like characters. And then, so when my son was around 3 or 4, he got into robots. And then because whatever he was into, I was kind of drawing and doodling with him, doing. And then just one day, like he did this little doodle of this little robot, and something in me like sparked. And I looked at it and went, I'd never thought of a robot like that. His little doodle was so cute and sweet. Hadn't seen them that way. And then, of course, it was right around the time that other robot type movie, the one with Robin Williams, all of those animated robot things came out. And so, and then eventually Wally. So I looked at that doodle. That's what, 2004? Oh my. And that little doodle sparked a little idea in my head to start kind of experimenting with robots and thinking of them. And I started drawing them and painting them. And I did license some into cards for kids. I did calendars, but I still saw this dimensional world. And then eventually using all these other I've been antiquing and collecting rusty things for years and years and years. So one day I started kind of building an assemblage robot, a little guy. And then eventually he just kind of sat on my shelf for a long time because I wasn't sure what I was supposed to do with him. But that's kind of how Pocket started. And I kept looking at him sitting on my bookshelf, and I'm like, he just has this face. He has this feeling for me. I just knew I was supposed to do something with him. And then
first of all, how did he get his name Pocket?
Well, he got his name Pocket because, again, inspired by my son, like when he was little, I just wanted to pick up my son and put him in my pocket just to protect him.
Aww.
And so this whole idea of, I didn't want my son to be afraid, or I didn't want him to feel, fear of the outside world. And, I was battling my own anxiety. So I just was thinking about, I don't want him to feel this way. So a lot of it was just, I wanted to tuck him in my pocket just to protect him from the rest of the world. But at the same time, I thought, this little robot could be my little character that I show him that, Pocket can do anything. Pocket, whatever obstacles Pocket faces, he overcomes them. He'll build a ladder. He uses everything that's around him to build the world he's in. A lot of Pocket's world is upcycling. So I'm always thinking about the world we're leaving for our children. So that whole environmental aspect really started to hit me hard. And then, of course, I was in licensing, and then I was feeling like, oh no, am I contributing to this throwaway culture? Yeah. And that was really kind of exploding. And I just, it all kind of came crashing in on me. And then I felt like, okay, I have to really turn this into something hopeful and positive. And I want our children to be excited about the future. And little did I know, here I thought I was building a world for kids. I thought that I wasn't. I was building a world for more for everybody, like for people like me. More of my fans are my age, older. Like I just have fans of all ages. So I had no idea that he was going to touch so many people all over the world. It's just been mind blowing.
So you birthed Pocket, you created Pocket, and he sat on your windowsill, and probably, it just took a bit. What got him off of your windowsill and out into the world?
I started to pull back from art licensing.
Mhm.
For a period there, I was probably working with about a dozen American companies, mainly American, a few Canadian, that I was licensing for. And I was feeling a bit overwhelmed by it all. But I think, and again, Lori's right. I was successful. I was making a great income, but I just felt like I just needed to pull back from some of it. I narrowed down to working with just a few companies in licensing so I could continue that, but at the same time, give myself permission, give myself the gift of starting to play with Pocket now, to figure
Ah.
out what it was that kept calling me, that whisper, that way you have to pay attention to all those whispers. So I kind of took him off the shelf and started putting him into little story type vignettes and photographing him and then sharing the photos on
Yeah.
Instagram.
I think I remember too, you were just about to enter was it the One of the Kind
Yes.
show in Chicago?
I entered the one of a kind in Toronto.
Oh,
Yes.
in Toronto.
Yes.
So I remember that was one of the kind of initial transitions when you were
Yes.
really, really making a commitment to going this path.
Yeah. As far as assemblage, I just started using everything I had and making larger pieces.
Hmm.
I was making larger robots, larger characters. Um, and then I thought, well, I'm going to see how people respond to this. So I did 3 kind of large shows, one in Toronto, one not far from my home, and another 2 gallery shows. And the success of them was just showed me like, okay, I'm on, this feels good to me. My heart was soaring. I loved it. It, I sold all the pieces. It's great. So that just showed me like, okay, you're heading down the right path. I was scared to death.
Yeah.
Like I thought people were going to look at me and go like, what is this? Like, what are these? But I didn't have that reaction. I had a great reaction and then sold all the pieces, which helped continue to, for me to kind of carry on. But again, there was just that other calling, like, okay, I don't want to just make pieces. There's something else. I want to tell stories. I want to share some kind of storytelling with my characters.
So I have a question about Pocket. Your background in art licensing, you probably knew that you could take Pocket and have him reproduced. And he had an affection. I mean, he's adorable. But you didn't. Yeah, because it's the upcycling that you really wanted to honor that, correct?
Yes, that's 1,000%. I
Yeah.
knew I've had offers over the years. I knew I could license him. I just felt like he's definitely close to my heart. So I just wanted to keep exploring where I think I could take him on my own. I'm open to, I'm not saying that I'm not open to some things, but yeah, the whole environmental impact and assemblage and the message that Pocket has, even now when I'm designing product, because I was in that world, stationery, gift, home, and gift,
Yeah.
like I was in that whole world. But now when I'm designing product for Robin Davis Studio, for Pocket's World, it's very, very planet conscious. What are the products? How are they made? What's the production? And like Lori knows too, we in licensing, we learn all that. We learn about how all of our products are made in art licensing. I mean, and some companies do one heck of a job, beautiful products. Some, you learn all that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I think because again of what I learned, I wanted to try and keep it here in the studio as much as I can. And yeah.
I love
Can
that.
I circle back a minute to the storytelling piece? Because even when you were doing licensing, storytelling is really a big part of that, especially like the sales force loves a story behind what the artist creates because it helps them to sell more product. But I think you always took it a step further. You always drew characters, your angels, and they always had kind of a personality to them. And I'm seeing you making these beautiful films, and I just see books and films and all of those kinds of things emerging out of Little Pocket. Is
Yeah,
that what you're dreaming of?
for sure. For sure. I would love to do books, and I'm really drawn to making videos. And as a kid, theater was going to the theater was so huge. I'm so nostalgic. So just the whole idea of him being more on film or in publication is definitely what I'm drawn to. So that's what I tried. A lot of my focus is on that as much as I can.
Well, I would love to see Pocket more. Maybe I can almost see it as an Academy Award short film or something. But along with that, though, Robin, I'm drawn to what you said about how you created him somewhat for children, but adults are the ones that actually responded to him in a greater capacity. Do you think it's because we all have a little that we want that childlike sense in our heart, and what are you hearing from people when they reach out to you and talk to you about the robots and the world you're creating?
It's a lot of like grandparents, and then the grandparents will tell me that they're showing their grandchildren and that they watch the videos together. And again, I just kind of hadn't really thought of it that way, but I'm such a like a kid at heart. I just believe that we all need to find time to play every day.
Yes.
And that is anything, like that's playing with your cooking, that's playing with your fabrics, that's playing with your photography, it's playing with your kids. It's just if it like we all learn as children in our moments of play. That's when we learn about our imagination. That's when we learn about exploring. That's when we learn like, oh, I just did this, I played with this, and then I learned this, or I created this. And from there, I just feel like if we always have to look for that, giving yourself that time to play with whatever it is. Again, I always feel like everyone's got a calling, some little whisper inside them that they want to try something, they want to play with something. And I say, make the time, do it. Like you have to
Yes.
do it, because
Yes.
I'm in a whole other world now because I gave myself time to play.
Good for you.
So, speaking of play and children, we always love to know a little bit more about each of our guests as a child and what were they doing when they were kids, because a lot of times what our guests end up doing when they're living most authentically, it circles back in some way to what they loved when they were young. So, what was little Robin like?
Oh, that's funny. When I think about it, you're right, because I was heading to the forest. I was down by the creek. I was building little houses. I was already into doll houses and miniatures and building little worlds and using the moss and the twigs I was always outside. I was climbing trees, and every moment I could, I was outside doing something. But my sister and I specifically remember, like, we always kind of imagine these little fairy tale worlds, especially at our cottage. So we'd be exploring the cottage and picturing little fairies or whatever down by the lake or down in the trees. Yeah. So like my imagination was pretty wild. And it still is pretty wild.
I love that. And it reminds me of the fairy gardens I grew up playing outside a lot. And I love what you said about play, because just having the ability to play when I am creating in my studio, when I create my florals, everybody says, oh, who are you doing that for? I'm not doing it for anybody. I'm doing it for me, because you need that ability to just be creative. And I think when you have that ability, as you said, just to play, then something beautiful evolves out of that, because you don't feel forced into creating something. And listen, we all, as Lori has said, we all need to pay the bills. So sometimes we do need to create for someone else. And I understand that. And that's really important. but allowing yourself just a little bit of time just to just let it be, let it go, and see what
Yes.
happens. And
Yeah.
and I think when I see Pocket, and everybody, we'll put a picture of Pocket up too, so everybody can see him. When you just see all the different elements that are part of him that are just everyday elements, but all of a sudden he becomes this person, and it's this character, and it's just, he's got a heart, he's got a soul.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Oh, that makes my heart smile.
Oh.
Saying that. Yeah.
So I'm wondering, because, you were making a good living and now you're making this transition into something that you don't know where it's going to take you.
For sure.
I'm just curious about your husband, like your family's reaction, and like, were they supportive right from the get-go? Because I think that's another piece of the puzzle when people do want to pursue something. Having someone to support them in that dream is really important.
1,000%. My husband is, he's my hero. He believes in the thing I'm creating, or the things I'm creating. Like, he is just incredible. My son too, like, they have cheerleaded me the whole way, this entire journey. Like, my son is 24 now. So I made Pocket when he was 4. And then, like I said, he sat on the shelf for years. But I mean, Connor, my son, knows and has seen me build this thing, build this brand, build this little world. He knows what the messaging is all about. So if I'm showing him a video I'm working on or a photo I'm working on, both of them, I'll show them. And because they know so much about the message I want to convey in the world Pocket is building, like, they both have such great feedback. They give me ideas like crazy. In editing, they'll watch and they'll say, "Oh, I think you should do this or that." Like, I don't know what I would do without them. And financially, yes, it was scary, because I was literally walking away from pretty good income as I pulled back from licensing. There was definitely periods where we ate a little more craft dinner, but I was happier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Has your son? I was going to say that, one of my joys is when I hear my children talking about the things that I've done or that I'm doing. When your son not only works with you or talks to you about it or speaks to other people, I'm curious, is he following his own creative path, or what are you noticing as he's now an adult? How has Pocket touched his world and his life?
Yeah, 1,000%, Jamie. Like, when we are courageous and brave, we show our children that they can be courageous and brave too. Like, take a leap of faith and try it. And if you do, then like, okay, it worked, it didn't work, but I tried. I gave it a go. Like, so yes, he's building his own. He's a little entrepreneur. He has his own business, and he's watched my husband and I with our own businesses. So yeah, he's learned a lot about running your own business and being brave and figuring things out by taking a bit of leap of faith, and just so, like, try it and see. Just like the play is just about, give yourself, like, look, there's always laundry, there's always a meal to be made, there is always something else, especially as women, that call us to say, I should be doing this. And my thing is, like, if you give yourself that gift of, no, I'm going to spend an hour or two just in my, wherever that space is, whether it's cooking, cleaning, studio, on your kitchen table, whatever that thing is that's calling you, give yourself that time to explore that thing that keeps calling you, because then you are going to be happier. And when you're happier, then you're able to do all those other things that are calling you. That to-do list is always going to be there. But when you give yourself time to play and figure that other stuff out, then the to-do list will get done.
Let's take a quick minute and thank our amazing sponsors. Our podcast is proudly brought to you today by Jet Creative and UrbanStems. Jet Creative is a women-owned marketing firm committed to community and empowerment since 2013. Are you ready to rebloom and build a website or start a podcast? Visit jetcreative.com/podcast to kickstart your journey. They will help you bloom in ways you never imagined. And bonus, our listeners get an exclusive discount when you mention Rebloom. And a huge thanks to UrbanStems, your go-to and our go-to source for fresh, gorgeous bouquets and gifts delivered coast to coast. Use Bloom Big 20 and save 20% on your next order. And don't forget to subscribe to this podcast and follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Rebloom Podcast. Thanks to our sponsors, and thanks to you for joining us today.
I'm curious, Robin. So you always hear that when you find your passion or you follow your heart, that the universe responds to that and opportunities come your way. Do you feel that that's been the case for you?
Yes, I believe that wholeheartedly. That's what I say that all the time. Universe, tell me if I'm on the right path. I say it out all the time. I'll just say, oh, am I on the right path? And then something happens. Something shows me that I'm on the right path. It happens every time I say it out loud.
Wow.
Am I on the right path? Yeah. And then boom, there's an email. Boom, there's a DM. There's, someone wants to meet, like stuff like that. Yeah, for sure. And then it's, again, because of my licensing world, I was able to figure out, oh, do I want to take that meet? Like before in licensing, I said yes to so many things because you think, well, every opportunity that comes to you, you're supposed to say yes to. Now I don't feel that way.
Good.
Now, again, because of my experience, I can look at the opportunities and really see, does this align with what I'm building? Does this align with the direction I'm in? I've had sponsorship offers, but, does it align with Pocket's world? And again, in a environmentally friendly way, and lots of times, well, not lots of times, sometimes it does work, sometimes it doesn't. So I say no to opportunities, even though, yes, sure, I could have used the money, but if it doesn't make sense with what I'm doing in here, then I'm not interested in saying yes. So somehow, yeah,
no,
the universe finds a way.
I think that's fabulous advice, because I think sometimes we get a little scattered and sometimes we say yes to too many things. And that is brilliant advice for our listeners, because I think if you're pretty clear about the direction that you're going, it's easier to say no, and it's easier. And then you're able to grow the thing that you do want to grow, which is the world that you're building for, in your case, for Pocket. So I'm curious. I love, my friend Lori always asks, I'm curious about Pocket's world. He's 20 years old. 20. Oh my gosh. If you could tell us about, you started, he was sitting on the windowsill and you've grown this fabulous business. How and what does it look like now? And how are you enjoying the business, Pocket's world?
Okay. So I first thought, I'll make cards. So I call them Pocket postcards. So I just started setting him up in all his little scenes, and I was photographing him. And then I just started with the Pocket postcard line, which I sell online. And then that was kind of the beginning of, all right, I will look for a way to produce postcards. I try and use environmentally friendly papers. I do my best to, again, and that's all with a local printer. So I do all that. And then from there, it just kind of I expanded into like experimenting with the filming. I didn't have any idea what I was doing. But I just started to play. How does this work? Do I have fancy equipment? I do not. Everyone thinks I do. I do not have fancy equipment. I use my phone half the time. I got my tripod is just a cheap little tripod I purchased online. Like it's just all about, it's not really about the equipment and the tools. It's about just the story and the thing you want to convey.
Yes.
So sometimes it looks a little amateurish. I'm okay with that. I think more and more that we are going to be more okay with it looking a little more imperfect, because I believe in my imperfect world. I call myself a playful imperfectionist.
I
I'm not
love that.
interested in it. I'm not interested in it looking perfect. I think when people see my hand in the video or see my face all of a sudden awry, they see how little Pocket is, and they see when my hand is there, like this is a human making this thing. And in this world that we're heading into, AI, and has its pros and cons. I get it. It has its pros and cons. But I think as humans, we're going to gravitate more towards seeing actual humans making, you know, uh, movies and videos and books and things that you can tell it's a real human touch. It's not so AI generated. And then, I mean, there's some great stuff out there. I'm not, you know, but I just think we will crave more human created things.
I love the juxtaposition. This just hit me that a robot is something that is, could be thought of as AI
Yes.
aligned, but you're
Yes.
making these
Yeah.
robots out of junk and found
Yeah.
bits all by hand.
Yes.
So I love that combination that you're bringing such heart to something that maybe a robot is not envisioned as something that has a heart.
For sure. He
Yeah.
is not run by tech. He is run by my heartstrings. It's my
Oh,
heartstrings that make him move, that show his tenderness and his caring and his love and how he thinks about the planet and the messages he wants people to feel and hopeful. Like I just want people to feel hopeful. I want people to feel inspired, and that all things are possible. Pocket believes that all things are possible. And in his crazy, rusty, junk-filled world, he only sees beauty.
But
He just, yeah,
yeah, and I love that though, because in his crazy junk filled world, all of those crazy pieces of junk were made by someone's hands and someone's heart.
that's
I mean, you
right.
think, oh, it's a paperclip, but somebody thought to make a paperclip and
Right,
they made the paperclip. And even if
right,
it's rusty and junky, it still was made. So each and every piece of Pocket and the pieces, the assemblage pieces that you're doing were made by someone else's heart and then
for sure.
brought together by yours and not forgotten. And that's
Right. And I think that's why
beautiful.
people feel some kind of emotion with him
Yeah.
because he he it's been touched by humans. It's
Yeah.
everything, every part of him, the leather, the vintage leather, his arms and legs are made out of his body is an old mahjong set I found in an antique store.
Ah,
His head's an old dice. Like all of that kind of conveys that he is made from humans for humans.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
feel like Pocket is Robin.
Oh, that's lots of people say that. I feel like that too. Kind of like Jim Henson said Kermit was him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would say I feel the same way. Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
I know you always had an affinity for Jim Henson. Did
Oh,
did you see the documentary about him
I've
on
already watched it probably 4 or 5 times.
It's what a brilliant mind. Oh my
He
gosh.
was probably my biggest inspiration as a child.
Yeah,
Yes.
I remember you talking about him.
Yeah. Yeah. Probably my biggest inspiration, especially as a little girl, knowing that I was creative, but not knowing what I was supposed to do with that. Like I knew I was creative. I knew like,
yeah.
in art, all my art classes, my teachers always made a big deal about the things I was making. So I knew there was something there. But we're talking in the 70s, a young girl that knows that she's creative. And then the Muppets come on the TV and all that stuff. And I'm like, oh, wow. Okay. You can be creative and do something big and awesome. And so, yeah, Jim Henson was a huge influence on my life.
Well, then no wonder you were that three-dimensional storytelling characters. No wonder
Yeah.
all of that was whispering to you if that's what you loved when you were young. And you've taken
Yeah.
that into your world now, and I love that. I mean, I could see you having a whole show about Pocket and all of his friends.
Yeah. Oh, I'd love that. That's kind of what I'm working towards. On the website, I have a whole thing of all the characters, all Pocket's characters in his
There,
world there. But
there's
they're mainly all the vintage toys we rescue. That's a big part of Pocket's world too, because we rescue vintage toys. And we rescue the ones that look like, they've been sitting there a while. They've got dust on them and nobody wants them because they're not pristine. I want the ones that are rusty and missing eyes and keys and wind up. Yeah, I want the ones that I can kind of fix and
I may
play
have
with.
some stuff I could send your way, Robin, because
I have
All
some.
right.
I
I'm thinking
too
I
am
have
a
some things
collector.
too. Well, and I love to use vintage pieces in my florals. I'm always
Oh,
looking, like you are, for the things that have a story to tell.
Story to tell.
Today's post that I have, my vessel is an old lunch pail,
Love it.
and so I think that those pieces from the past are just. I love the more dented and the dinged up and the
Yes.
rusty and the chippy
Yeah.
because it was loved. And I know that they can't tell the story, but maybe by repurposing them, they're telling a new story. And that is equally as important. Would you agree?
1,000%.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. The more rust and chips and the patina is what tells us the human history. The
Yeah.
patina of that lunchbox is how many kids held it, how many kids ate their lunch out of it, how many kids sat at the table and giggled together and shared and ate their lunch and went back to class. Like that has way more charm than any other vessel you could have picked for your floral arrangement.
I would agree.
I also think of, did you watch that Rudolph special in the 60s that they had the land of the misfit toys?
Misfit toys. Yeah.
Like, and they were on this island and nobody loved them. And
Yeah.
I think you're taking all these misfit pieces and parts and putting them together in a beautiful new way, telling beautiful stories.
I call myself a magical misfit because I feel like I live on that island. The whole feeling of where do you belong?
Yeah.
I mean, I go through that all the time now still.
Do you think that Pocket helps people? I know initially he was to protect people, but do you think that he's a connector now and helping people maybe who are misfits to feel like they belong?
Oh, for sure. It's again that because I feel like that so much. Like, where do I belong?
Yeah.
And I'll think like I'll have an emotion and then I'll think, oh, what would Pocket say to me? I know that sounds crazy, but then I think, oh, because Pocket is so optimistic. And when I'm having those dark days, the rough days, the days that just the studio feels darker and I'm not, I'm not sure, oh, what do I even have the energy to create today? I'll just, even if it's a 10-second video, just to send a little bit of love and light with Pocket out into the world. And if it makes one person smile, well, then great. Then that's turned my frown upside down.
I love that awesome. So much.
Yeah, it's hard, right? At times, just the struggle of our dark days and our bright days. And I think as creatives with creative brains, we battle both.
Yes,
we do. And I think it's hard creatively. Sometimes you are alone and you're creating, but you do. I think that's the beauty of social media. It's also the beauty of, I'm sure, these shows and things that you're doing, that you get feedback from others. What is some of the lovely feedback you receive from your Pocket fans?
Oh, like the outpouring of love. Like if I get, you're going to make me cry, but yeah, I had no idea that people were going to respond like they did. Here's this little robot and I'm just starting to share some photos with him. They just always say like things like, oh, he makes me smile. He has something about him makes them feel like they believe in the possibilities. They say he gives them hope.
Oh,
I'm overwhelmed by some of the comments and the love that most of the time it's, we love Pocket. We love Pocket. We love Pocket. It's that. I get emails, letters, people send stuff in the mail. Pocket has all kinds of things in the studio that people have sent him. It can be little books. It can be little blankets. It can be pillow. I mean, it's been overwhelming. And that's when I know, okay, I'm not sitting here by myself.
Yeah.
Those
I
are the
love it.
days. If I go back and I start reading the comments, I'm like, okay, I'm not sitting here by myself. I have a whole bunch of wonderful fans that I would call friends now that just love what we're doing here. So but I'm not, I always like, I'm not doing it for me. I'm doing it for them. Even though I
Mhm.
say Pocket saved me, like he did. But yeah,
And
it,
what a gift you've given to your son to see that he inspired this whole world for you that is
yeah,
now inspiring the whole world.
for
Right.
sure. Pocket's world is a love letter to my son.
Oh,
Oh,
Absolutely. It absolutely is. Yeah. No matter what happens to me, he'll always have that.
you've
he'll
made me
always.
tear up like
I
about 4 times
know.
during this
Oh,
conversation.
I know. You're just,
I am a sentimental, nostalgic, big mushy heart.
Yeah, yes, you are, and that's why I love you.
but it's, it's the core things of play and
Yeah.
love and creativity and trusting your heart and putting all of that, just mixing that all up together. And you're always going to come out with something that is beautiful. It's a beautiful gift. We may not
Yeah.
know what it is,
Yeah.
but
And it doesn't have to be perfect.
it
Be
does
be a
not.
playful imperfectionist.
I love
Be a
that.
playful imperfectionist because yeah, just that's how we learn as we keep creating and going and moving forward. That's how we learn.
I think we all need to be playful imperfectionists because I think when we try, I'm taking a class this summer, an encaustic class, and I've never done it before. And I'm really bad at it. I mean, but that's okay. I've never done it before. But our teacher, like you said, is just encouraging us to just play. I'm like, okay, well, I mean, these aren't going to be sold. So, like, stamp something or do something or heat it or see what happens. And just by doing that, it's been such a fun class just because
Oh,
you get to play.
yeah.
I feel that way about hand building, my clay class.
Yeah.
Yes. See?
I love it because nothing I'm making in that class do I want to sell or care to sell. I'm
Yeah.
making it just because I want to. And now
Right.
Kenzie's going to take the next session with me.
Oh,
So,
that's
and she doesn't always use her hand, like she uses the computer mostly.
yeah.
So I think this is really going to be great for her.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
so good.
I
And it,
think you open up a whole different world. And even by looking at Pocket, you are teaching people about recycling. You're teaching people that you can be creative with the things that are in our world, whether they be natural or whether they be man-made. But there's just so many shapes and beautiful things out there. We recently interviewed Mary Jo Hoffman, who wrote a beautiful new book called Still the Art of Noticing.
Oh,
And she
yeah.
does these beautiful photographs of nature.
Love it.
And uh, you look at nature differently. I think you look at our
Mm,
world differently. By you creating Pocket's world, you're helping us to look at our world a little differently and more respectfully.
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's great. You just made my heart compass go. Like, and that's what I always say, follow your heart compass. Your
Yeah.
heart compass is always guiding you. We just have to kind of take a few deep breaths and get a little still and then listen to what it's saying. I journal and then I use water to help bring answers to me. And when I say that, I go swimming.
Oh,
Mhm.
Well, when I'm in water, either the bathtub or I go in the pool, a lot of ideas come to me in the water.
Hmm.
So, and then journaling. I'll just write. I don't edit. I don't stop what's coming. I just write without even editing yourself. Just write in a journal, get it out of your head. And then the answers always come. They
Yeah.
do for me anyways. They do for me.
I
I would
know
agree.
Julia Cameron, she calls that artist pages, or art, I think that's what she calls it, where you're supposed to, when you wake up, just write 3 pages worth of,
Whatever.
anything
Yeah.
that spills out of you. And I was doing that a while in my 30s when I was kind of hitting a weird spot, and it really does help because
Oh,
things just
I,
come out
I
that you're like,
yes,
where did that
yes,
come from?
yep. that's how the playful imperfectionist came out of me. I was just journaling.
Yeah.
And then those words came.
I
Playful
love it.
imperfectionist.
Life is not perfect, and I
Yeah.
think anytime you think that it is, we're just fooling ourselves. So I think you're right, taking the time to just let it out, and sometimes we don't know what's bottled up. And I do this, I journal, and I'll look back and I'll think, did I say that? Like, just,
Yeah, right?
but you needed to try, you needed to get it out.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just need to let your hands create. And that's the beauty of what you're doing, and that what I hope others will take away from this too is, the macaroni necklaces that we all made when we were little kids that we painted, or those are simple little things that, those are the seeds of inspiration. We may not remember them, but yet if you ask somebody, have you ever made a macaroni necklace? Most everybody has made a macaroni necklace.
Right.
But it's planting those little seeds to let all children know that they can be creative. And then I think what you're finding with these adults who are touched by your work is that they remember those beautiful seeds and want to be reconnected with them.
For sure. Oh, you just hit the nail on the head. For sure. That's exactly it. And don't grow up.
Don't grow
Like,
up. Don't grow
you
up.
have to remember that childlike wonder inside. It's inside all of us. It's all those things that happen in your life that remind you, whether it's all of a sudden you become a grandparent and you're like, oh, I'm a kid again.
Yeah.
Because our children remind us of the magic inside our hearts. And then, then if you have grandchildren, it's the same thing. So
Totally.
just remember that childlike wonder. It's always been there. It never left us.
Yeah.
We all played in the sandbox and built the things and climbed the tree. That's how we learned. That's how our brain developed. We need more of that.
Yeah. It gets beaten out of us a little bit along the way.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I think you created, I'm not going to put words into your mouth, but you created Pocket to show your son protection. But what you're protecting is our creative heart, all of our creative heart. Pocket actually shows us all that our creative heart is still there, and he's protecting that piece of our heart. And I love that.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. And again, like I said, like I really struggled with anxiety when my son was younger. And so, just the whole trying to do it all, and what do I do with all this stuff that's in my head? And again, just really diving into what my heart was calling helped pull me out of a dark time.
Wow.
Time I was really struggling. Mm-hmm.
I love that. Well, Robin, you are incredible. This has been one amazing quote and soundbite and piece of advice after another. And I hate to even ask, but is there something you'd like? Because you've given us so much. I feel like, okay, well, that's something we could say. And I love it. But anything you'd like to leave our listeners with today, a little piece of advice or something, another piece of advice that you want to leave our listeners with?
I think my biggest advice is live with a playful heart. But the second bit is, you don't need all kinds of fancy equipment and tools to do the thing that might be calling you. Like, just use exactly what you have right now and give it a go. Like, whatever materials are around you, just start playing. Like I said, most of my movies that you see are all filmed on my iPhone. I don't have fancy equipment or fancy tools. Most of my tools are old. I just experiment with what I have. So that would be...
I so agree with that, because I think a lot of times perfectionism stops people.
Yeah.
Because they have this thing in their mind of what it should be or what it should look like or how it should be made and what you need to achieve that.
Yeah.
Instead of like kids, they just dive in. They just do it. They don't think about all that stuff, and they don't care about what the end result is. Wow. They're just doing it. And then every time you do that, you learn something. And then next time you do it a little better. And next time you do it a little better.
For sure.
Yeah.
You could put eight adults at a table and hand them all 3 pieces of pipe cleaner.
Mm-hmm.
and ask those 8 adults with those 3 pieces of pipe cleaner, nothing else, no scissors, just make something.
Mm-hmm.
What you will see them make will be 8 completely different things, and they will you will be inspired.
Yep.
Yes.
And that was only 3 little pieces of pipe cleaner.
Right.
So if you
It's
can
it's a
inspire
party idea for our
right?
listeners.
Yes.
Yeah.
Pipe
It
cleaner
is.
parties across
Pipe
the
cleaner
nation.
Oh, we just started something. That's a good idea.
Exactly. Make your napkin rings out of pipe cleaners and watch people play with them at the dinner table. I bet that they would do that. I bet. Robin, you are a delight. Thank you so much. Thank you for being the best guest and the best playful perfectionist that we know.
Imperfectionist.
Playful imperfectionist. I got to get it right. Not perfectionist, of course, playful imperfectionist. And, just to have fun. And thank you for bringing us into Pocket's world today.
Oh, thank you so much, ladies. It was enchanting to talk to you both.
So someday we have to get together in person again.
Yes. Yes.
And with Paula too. Maybe we'll go visit her in Black Mountain.
I know. I keep saying that to her too.
Who is Paula? Do we need to go on a road trip, Lori?
Yeah, another road trip. Paula Jorling is a friend of ours who she's amazing, and she lives
outside of Asheville.
Yeah.
Well, Lori and I are going to do a Rebloom road trip.
Yeah.
And
Cross
we're not
country.
sure when. Yeah,
and
but
in
we're
Canada.
We're definitely coming. Well, thank you so much for inviting us into your beautiful studio. Thank you for sharing the hour with us. And thank you for reblooming.
Thank you, ladies. Have a beautiful day.
You do the same.
Bye-bye. Lori, that was incredible. What did you take away from this?
I was writing down phrase after phrase because I think Robin is also a writer. I'm sure she was writing as a kid. I meant to ask her that, but the first phrase I wrote down was being courageous and brave. And I so love how she's showing her own son, but I know she shows that to me. As I've been watching her over these last few years, really focusing on something that she absolutely loves, it's been inspiring me. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted Robin to be on our podcast, because I wanted to learn more about how to be a little bit braver myself and maybe go more towards those things that are, really drawing me. The other one was the playful imperfectionism. I love that because we said perfectionism stops people. Perfectionism is fear. And I was just with a friend this weekend who is getting ready for her very first craft show. And she's so scared and she's so full of fear. And it's kind of taking a little bit of the joy out of the making of the pieces for the show. Yeah. But I envision her on the other side after she's done it and what she'll take away and what she'll learn. And so I love that. I love the magical misfit, and I love I love heart compass. And
I love all of
following
those.
your heart compass. Because I do feel like again, watching Robin doing that and living that and all of the abundance of goodness and love that's come her way, I think it's been reciprocal about all that she's wanting to share and in love and in serving the world. And I think when you focus on doing that, those two things, following your own heart, but also doing it in service of the world or in service of others, that's when the magic really happens.
Lori, that is so beautifully said. I don't think I could say it any better. And I hope for all of our listeners today that they will follow their heart compass and be playful imperfectionists. And we thank you all for joining us today. And peace, love, and rebloom. Life is too short not to follow your passions, so go out there and let your heart plant you where you are meant to be and grow your joy.
We will be right here sharing more incredible stories of reinvention with you. Make sure to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode of Rebloom.
Until next time, I'm Jamie Jameson.
And I'm Lori Siebert.
Peace, love, and rebloom, dear friends.